Here's a question that's going to blow your mind. Should you apply to jobs through Indeed and ZipRecruiter or go directly to the company's website? And what if I told you the answer could be the difference between getting an interview and disappearing into a black hole? I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is the future of work with AI. Today I'm talking with Steve Rothberg, founder of College Recruiter, who's been running job boards for over 25 years and just dropped some game-changing insights about how the job market really works. Here's the stat that stopped me cold. Netflix ran a study and found that candidates who got employee referrals were 10 times more likely to get hired. 10 times. But here's where it gets wild. Steve says with AI flooding the application system, referrals are about to become even more critical. So here's what we're diving into. Why going to a job board first, then applying through the ATS with a referral is the ultimate hack. Steve's pickleball strategy for networking with people who could actually hire you, and why your career isn't a linear path, it's chapters in a book, and AI is about to write some new ones. If you've ever applied to hundreds of jobs and felt like you're shouting into the void, this conversation is going to change everything about how you think about job searching. The world's changing fast, and the old playbook isn't working anymore. Let's figure out the new rules. Here we go. So, welcome to Future Work Podcast. I've got Steven here from College Recruiter, and we're going to talk. Maybe we'll start on the job seeker side, and you can give a little background. But I think one of the things we were talking about before we jumped in here was this idea of like, do I go directly to the ATS or do I go directly to the job board to apply? And I think that's an awesome place to start because I think the answer is it depends.
Yeah, I totally agree. As a job board owner, people might think, well, wouldn't you always want candidates going to the job board to apply? I look at job boards as being a good but sort of somewhat necessary evil. Let's be candid.
Right.
No job seeker has ever woken up in the morning and said, "Oh, I can't wait to go to a job board."
Right.
Nor has any candidate ever woken up in the morning and said, "I can't wait to go to an applicant tracking system." What they can do is say, "Today, I want to apply to 5 jobs, 12 jobs. I want to get a job offer. I want to get hired." So, all of these tech tools in between the employer, the offer, and the job seeker are just, it's process. They're obstacles. And I've always felt that in our industry, HR technology companies, that the best thing that we can do is be as invisible as possible. When I was growing up, I remember my dad saying, "You know that you have a really good mayor if you don't know the mayor's name."
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it is. I also think that, and this goes for both sides. I think that for the most part, we are mostly subconscious in what we do and kind of following habit. And so when you think about a job seeker and you go, I need a job. So I go to a job board because that's where there'll be the most open jobs. And
Yes.
therefore that makes sense logically, what we were always taught, what we were trained. And so I'm going to go search for a sales job on this job board. And I'm going to see a big list of sales jobs. Perfect sense. It's a habit. It's the way you go. It's how the job boards make money and the service they offer. Hey, we're going to have a big pot of jobs from all over the place. And you may not know, some of these employers. You may not know that these jobs even existed, yada, yada, yada. And at that point, job boards clearly have ran the normal internet game of going, hey, we want to make sure we get credit. So one of the reasons they drive you to apply is to get credit, right?
Hmm.
Because if you don't get credit, then why would somebody pay? And we want to bring you back in the future, so we want you to sign up for our job alerts, which I send a ton of. And maybe we want to combine those together. Hey, when you're applying, sign up for our job alerts so we can bring you back to other jobs. And it all makes perfect logical sense. And it is easier, to be honest. Like if I have an Indeed account or a ZipRecruiter account or a
Hmm.
LinkedIn account, I can easy apply. So
Yep.
all of that sounds like that's the best experience for the job seeker. That said, like going to the ATS, I don't think that we realize generally means a different thing. It means, hey, I love XYZ company. I really
Yes.
want to so for instance, I've been thinking about applying for a job at Claude. I like Claude's platform. I use Claude's platform. I don't go to Indeed and search for Claude. I go to Claude's website. I click on jobs. I view all their different jobs. There's potentially 3 or 4 different jobs I hadn't even thought of. that I might go, oh, that's interesting. I could kind of do this job or that job. But what I know is I really want to work at this organization, and the job becomes secondary. And I think that like this one spot, the most like never thought about on the job seeker side, that these are two different actions and have two different pros and cons. And on the employer side, don't even think about it at all. Like they haven't thought through that thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's also some overlap there. So
100%.
I think you and I, Ryan, are on the same page. Job boards excel at delivering ads, getting opportunities from employers in front of candidates where that candidate may never have known that the employer existed, let alone the job. But if the candidate already knows, kind of like you were saying with Claude, I want this job or this kind of job with this employer, there's really no reason to go to a job board. Um, but even candidates that say, I'm looking for, say, customer service or some kind of maybe inbound sales, almost like quasi customer service, not sure if it's customer service or sales with this company. So I'm going to go directly to the ATS, the applicant tracking system, the employer's site. They often are surprised. Oh, here's a job that I didn't know that this company offers. I'm going to apply. Or maybe I'm going to send it to my sister because this is actually a really good opportunity for her. When job boards do their job well, um, we get in front of candidates the jobs that they were expecting and also jobs that they might not have been expecting but are interested in. Now, where the overlap comes is that sometimes, and with our site, with College Recruiter, almost all of the time, when the candidate finds the job, we send them to the employer's site to apply. The employers overwhelmingly pay us per click. When the candidate sees the posting on College Recruiter, goes to the employer's site. Some of them apply, most of them don't. Um, or increasingly, we're paid when the candidate goes to the employer's site and applies. And as you can imagine, Ryan, we're paid a lot more when it's an application than just a click. So it's not mutually exclusive.
Well, and this is one of the areas where I think on the employers, if you're listening to this, like that concept of a source is we've been struggling with this in marketing for like 2 decades. Like
Mhm.
we try to whittle it down to like what is our source of the lead?
We've
And
been
yeah,
struggling with this in marketing as
yeah,
long as there's been marketing.
yeah. Because you're like, oh, cool. The source of the lead is College Recruiter. And you're like, okay, but there might be some other sources that were at play in that. I
Yes.
might have gone to College Recruiter and searched for a company by name because I saw them when I drove past him, because one of my friends works there, because of whatever. And so all these, we'll call them like, we have the difference between the
Hmm.
last source before they applied, and what we'll call like influential sources.
Hmm.
But clearly that doesn't work good in a drop down, and it doesn't work as good on a source report. So we pretty much just track the last source, and we allocate all of our like all of the kudos go
Yeah.
to the last source. So like for us, we'll send like 100 million emails a month direct from the employer saying, "Hey, here's a bunch of jobs and we have them open. Click here to go to the ATS." Lo and behold, probably like 80% of the job seekers end up going to Indeed to apply to that very same job.
Mm.
Not because they heard about it on Indeed, but because they heard about it in the email, but they have an Indeed account. And they're like, oh, it'd be way easier to apply if I went to Indeed. I'll use my profile there. The employer has no concept of that in their ATS. They
Yeah.
literally are like, oh, cool. Like Refer.io gives me, X number of candidates. We're like, yeah, but we also influence this huge swath. But they ended up going back through because, hey, it was easier. On the job seeker side, I'll say something that'll just offend everybody. Like, you should go to the job board, you should search for jobs. When you find it, you should not apply. I'll kind of get to where I'm going with this. You should back up and go to LinkedIn. You should go see who you know there.
Mm.
And then you should go apply through the ATS, and it will be harder and it will be a pain in the butt. And heaven forbid it's one of the bad ATSs that are really difficult. But the number one reason is that source drop down of the last source. When you switch that to employee referral and you put in somebody's name, your chances of getting interviews goes up 10x.
Right. And you're not exaggerating. So
Yeah.
for the job seekers who are like, "Oh, okay, well, Ryan's just trying to make his point." yes, he's trying to make his point, but he's doing it accurately.
That's
So I
that's off of
think,
like
I
10
th
million data points.
yeah, I
Like
think
literally.
something like 10 years ago, Netflix ran a study and they looked at where they were hiring candidates from, what was the likelihood that if you came from this source, you were going to be hired this source, this source, this source. And I remember reading like a summary of the study. I didn't look at the underlying
Mhm.
data. And I thought the methodology was superb. They controlled for a lot of different factors because you can imagine you're going to have you're going to have different percentages of candidates being hired into different kinds of roles.
Right.
Customer service roles, you're going to hire a far higher percentage of candidates than high-end sales,
Hmm.
CFO, types of
Right.
positions. And actually, CFO positions, you probably aren't going to have that many online applies. They tend to use executive recruiters for roles like that.
Like that.
So they controlled for that. And what they found was that candidates who were referred, there's an employee who can vouch for you. It's my brother, it's my next door neighbor, it's somebody I went to school with, whatever, that you were, I think the number you gave was right. I think it was something like 10 times as likely to be hired if you
Right.
give a referral. So you don't necessarily have to apply through LinkedIn, but what you do want to do is go, if you don't already know somebody, go to LinkedIn and get to know somebody. It's not that hard. And
100%.
say, and especially large organizations have employee referral programs. Overwhelmingly, they will pay cash to their employees when those employees refer somebody and get hired. So the employee has a financial incentive to refer you. They might get $250, they might get $1,000. It's almost always meaningful. Even if they don't get paid, can you imagine how good they look to their boss if they've kind of gone out of their way on their own time to help bring in a new hire? I mean, talk about
100%.
good karma.
Yeah. And I think like if you reduce like some of the goals. So for me, when I'm working with a job seeker, I'm like, forget about getting hired and whatever. Just get an interview because that seems to be like the most important
Mm,
hurdle. Can I get face to face or Zoom to Zoom with a live person? Period. That's my entire goal of applying. Can I just get face to face? And I think most of the negativity you hear out there is like, I apply, it's a black hole. I never hear back. I never got an interview. I'm a great fit. Yada, 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 yada. All that stuff is can you get face to face? Now, once you're face to face, now we got totally other dynamics at play of how well did you interview and all that kind of garbage. But stage one, can I get an interview? If you assume just limited amount of time, they're only interviewing 10, maybe 20 people maximum per job.
right.
That's
Mm,
why the dynamics go up. And so that idea of the interview, what I actually find is you're not looking for somebody to vouch for you. You're actually playing, we'll call this like a psychological game here, right? Like if I look in the ATS and this is getting worse. Like mark my words, 5 years from now, you and me are going to chat and we're going to be like, oh, it got worse until it broke the system. In number of applicants coming from the job boards is going up dramatically, and AI is flooding the field with making it easier and easier and easier to apply. But it isn't becoming easier to apply as an employee referral. And when you flood the field with potentially low quality, we as humans always revert back to a trusted source. We just do. Period. Period. Full stop. In every situation, if you flood the field with stuff, even if it's good stuff, but we have a difficult time sorting through it, we will always revert back to a trusted source. And in our mind, that's an employee referral, even if it's a soft referral. But the big aha for me when because I sat with this and ran all the data and I was like, wait a second, I think there's something else here on the interview side. And it's this one psychological hack, which is HR will give you the benefit of the doubt, not hire you, but to interview you
hmm.
purely because they don't want to tell that employee that they
Bingo.
just threw you out.
Bingo. Yeah,
And so
they
you're
want
just,
they
yeah,
yeah, you want to be nice to your coworkers. You want to show them that you value them and saying to them, "I can't even be bothered to talk to your sister for 10 minutes" is anything but. I'm glad that you hit on the point of 5 years from now. Referrals are going to be even more important than they are now because I've been thinking about this and I agree with you. I hope that there's actually I hope we're wrong. And the reason that I hope that we're wrong is that until the Industrial Revolution, call it 200 years ago, there really were not big companies. I mean, you could find some exceptions here and there,
Right.
but virtually everybody who was employed, like 99.9%, were hired by friends and family. You knew the people. You had a corner shop, you repaired shoes, your son came to work for you. Your brother did. Was right. That work was almost all male.
Right.
You were in a textile facility and you're sewing clothes. It was, like you got a job for your mother, you got a job from your aunt, those sorts of things. Employment was based upon who you knew much more than whether you were qualified, to what degree you were qualified. What worries me about getting back to a world where referrals dominate is that I fear that employers are going to hire less qualified people as a result of that. And I also fear that candidates are going to be discriminated against because if you don't know the person who owns the shop or who controls the hiring, or if you're not maybe 1 degree removed from them, your chances of being included in that applicant pool really, the interview pool really, really drop. So I feel like we're going to get into this siloed world even more
Hmm.
so with sort of haves and have nots. Perhaps there's going to be some kind of technology that will address this. One of the ways that employers are addressing it today, I think, is dystopian. You've got
Right.
AI interviewing AI. You've got candidates who are already kind of creating agents who are um, using AI to at least assist and sometimes automatically apply on their behalf. The employers have AI that's evaluating that. It's so dehumanizing. And we as an industry, the stakeholders in that, the employers, the job seekers, we need to fight against that. We need to find a better way.
Yeah, it's 100% coming. Exactly what you said. And I think on the job seeker side, you may look at that and say, it's unfair, it's not ethical, this sucks. Why? The big one that I always love is why would they do that? It's going to harm themselves. Like that's what I hear from a lot of colleges about AI gutting out the internship and that first job
Hmm.
is is that they sit there and go, it doesn't make any sense that the employers collective would do something that clearly is going to harm their long-term ability to attract great talent and have a talent pool and a talent pipeline. And they miss that employers collective do not exist. Employers individual make individual decisions. And like any great crowd of people who can see both what's in it for me and what's in it for the collective, we
Hmm.
always assume that we'll do what's in it for us and the collective will do the right thing and it will
Hmm.
all work out well. But
Hmm.
then what we always in almost every situation recognize is that the collective is just individuals, and when enough individuals, throw their trash on the ground, when enough individuals don't tip the person, when enough individuals take a penny and still leave a penny, that long term, like we can't depend on the collective doing the right thing when either one of two things you have the why would I do it? Nobody else does it. I'm harming myself by doing the right thing, or everybody else will do what's right. Nobody will notice that I'm the one that ate more food from the buffet.
Yeah.
And
Zig versus Zag.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and something else that you said that I don't want to overlook too is you used the words long term. Humans, unfortunately, are tend to drive their behavior based upon short term incentives more so than long term. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're a recruiter, if you're a hiring manager, and you've got an open seat, are you all that concerned about where the organization is going to be 5 years from now? Or do you need to hire Sarah's replacement today?
Right.
And so what you are going to take the shortest path to success today. You're going to do what you need to do today to replace Sarah. 5 years from now, you as a recruiter, you as a hiring manager, you're probably not even working for that organization. So what do you care about where that organization is going to be 5 years from today? It leads to a lot of bad behavior. Candidates, let's be candid, we do some of the same things,
100%.
right?
Tortoise and hare, right? The
Yeah,
entire point of using AI or job boards to apply to 1,000 jobs instead of 100 jobs is this like it's a lottery. The more
it
tickets, the better.
yep,
And slowing down seems to be contrarian to what everybody else is doing. It feels like I'm spending a lot more time, and it requires, I always see this like the contrarian approach when it works always requires a trust in quality over quantity. And you could say the same with hiring on the employer side as the job seeker side. It always requires a trust that this is not a lottery, that instead it is I will be rewarded for the effort. So like if I'm a job seeker today and I say, "Oh, this is unfair and this sounds terrible," and yada yada yada, and nobody loves the like it's who you know, not what you know. Your job today, and at least for the next 5 years, I would say for the rest of your life, but let's go with the next 5 years. We're entering a hyper chaotic, extremely disruptive, massive change cycle. Like
yep, we are.
similar to when the internet
We're
came
in it.
out. Yeah,
We're in
we
it.
are deep in this chaotic cycle, and it's going to be slower than you hear, but bigger than you hear. So everybody in AI will tell you the same thing if you actually pin them down. It's not marketing. We overestimate what can be accomplished in 1 to 3 years. We underestimate how much things will change in 5 to 10. So
Mm,
all this like you're already too late, you missed it. If you don't have your own team of agents doing your job for you, you're behind. No, no. That's like inside of the early adopters little echo chamber. That's
yeah.
the overestimation of what can happen in 1 to 3 years. It's going to take a while for us to truly adopt it. But 5 to 10 years, I don't know that my laptop will have a keyboard. I
Yeah.
think I will have a headset on, be talking to Perplexity via the app because my voice is such a better input device than the keyboard is, and it will literally feel different. I like going back to what you were saying. I believe that we will end up with companies that are smaller in size. That's an interesting thing to think about when you go, wait, we're going to actually see a reduction in size of company across the board. That doesn't mean a reduction in revenue per company, but a reduction in the size of the company as I'm managing a couple of agents doing my job. And
Hmm.
if that's the belief system, then I need to level up as a job seeker. Two things. I don't care what you do for work. You better start playing with AI. You better get to the point that you understand not just like using it instead of Google. Like
Hmm.
that is not as a user, as a builder, meaning, oh, I know how to make it work for me. I know how to turn it into a tool. I know how to build a tool for other people with it that do the same job I do because it unlocks this like creativity of like, oh man, I can build tools. Like we as humans, like at some point the caveman came out and went, dude, I built a hammer. This is awesome. Like I built a tool to do the job that I was doing with my hands. It unlocks our creativity. But the AI side, but the opposite side of just as much, if I was a job seeker or an employee right now, go find a co-working space, work there at least 1 day a week, because it's the fastest way to build your network.
Mm,
Just like get around people who don't work for where you work, that you can start to build your network quickly just at snack time. Like
hmm.
I'm at home today. Tomorrow I'll be in the co-working space. I
Mm.
can pick up 5 or 10 network connections every day just at snack time, just hanging out. I go get a drink. I meet somebody new. There's like 300 employees there who work for 200 different companies. Like it's a hotbed for connections and for kind of like AI sharing that you can't get sitting at home. You can't get in your own office space.
Yeah, the collaboration is something that we do well. I think that people do well.
Mm-hmm.
And learning and sharing. It, in addition to it just giving you the warm fuzzies,
Right.
right? It does make you better. You pick up tips and tricks from other people. Um, if it's okay, Brian, I wanted to circle back to something that you said
100%.
that I thought was really, really important for job seekers because we at College Recruiter we hear this all the time. And I think we probably hear it more than the average job board, more than the average employer because of who our audience is, right? So we're focused on early career candidates, 0 to 5 years of experience. What that tends to mean is that they tend to skew young.
Mm-hmm.
18 to 25 is kind of a typical age. And that means that they don't have nearly as much experience in the workforce as people like you and me do, right? Who are follically challenged.
Right.
Um, and the it's not that they're dumb as a 22-year-old, it's that maybe they're applying for their first or second professional job. So a lot of things that you and I have seen 1,000 times, this is their first or second time. And one of those things that you talked about was how unfair it is. I'm qualified. I didn't even get an interview. Or maybe I got an interview. I didn't get an offer. Like, it's disheartening. It's incredibly discouraging. And that's normal. I think when people
Right.
get rejected, if they're not discouraged, I'm more worried about them. When
Right.
they are discouraged, I think that's normal. It's not desirable to be rejected. It's you don't want people to feel disheartened, but it's normal. So now what do we do about it? I think one thing we can do about it is that folks like you and me can help job seekers understand the process. What a lot of people don't really appreciate is when an employer posts a job, literally thousands of job seekers will see that posting.
Mm-hmm.
Of the thousands that see it, almost always at least dozens, often hundreds, will apply. Of the people who apply, maybe 10% to perhaps 20% are actually qualified. Of those, the employer will interview some of those people. If you're an employer and you know that when you interview 5 candidates, you're going to hire somebody, why would you interview 20? You're going
Right.
to interview 10. So, what that means is half of the people who were qualified, if there were 20 that were qualified, half of the people who were qualified are not even going to get an interview. You might be candidate number 20. You actually might be better than candidate number one. And that's where some of the lottery stuff really starts to come into play. So you're in that group that didn't even get an interview. You felt you were qualified. You start to question yourself. What did I do wrong? The answer is maybe nothing. Maybe there were some things you could have done better. Maybe you could have written your resume so your keywords better matched up with the job posting. Maybe you could have put that referral down. Maybe you could have applied through the ATS instead of a job board, whatever. There are things you can do to improve your chances, but don't blame yourself every time you don't get an interview or that interview doesn't lead to an offer. Now, when they interview 10 people and they're only going to hire one, well, guess what? Of those 10, probably once the employers interviewed those people, probably 7 or 8 of them are actually qualified. The employer will find out that 2 or 3 of them they thought were qualified and aren't. Now you've got, say, 7 who are qualified, maybe 3 of them are highly qualified. The employer would be happy to hire any of the 3. Only one gets an offer. So those other 2 that were highly qualified were great. There was
Right.
nothing wrong with them. There's probably nothing that they could have done better, but it's a numbers game. So if you apply to 3 jobs, you're probably not applying to enough. If you're
Right.
applying to 3,000 jobs, you're surely applying to too many. There's a sweet spot. Um, the data, and you probably see the same thing. When employers advertise a job opening, about 5% of the candidates that go to the employer's website will apply. So 95% of the
Right.
people who see the ad and actually click and go to the applicant tracking system drop out for one reason or another. Of the 5% that apply, the employer will probably interview maybe 5% of those, and they're going to hire one out of
Yeah.
all that. I mean, it becomes thousands, become hundreds, become dozens, become one. And that's why when people say, oh, you applied to 200 jobs over the last 2 or 3 months, are you crazy? And I'm thinking to myself, no, they're rational because
Yeah.
those are the numbers. When I hear people saying I only applied to 10 jobs, but I did a really good job doing it, how long have you been out of work? 18 months. Hmm, maybe that's the problem. You're not playing the odds. So if you're a candidate and it's been a 2, 3 months and you've applied to a couple hundred jobs in this economy, I have no issue with that. So, tell your uncle who retired in 1957 and who's the guy that you don't want to see at Thanksgiving to go to hell because he's just wrong if he thinks that you should only be applying to 10 jobs.
Yeah, and I think oh yeah, and I think that's great as far as that part of like going, look, this just is a funnel. And
Yeah.
unlike a sales or marketing funnel where you have that same flow, only I can actually sell to 5 or 10 or 20 people, I only get to hire one.
Yep.
Like that's who I get hire. So it doesn't matter if we had 1,000 awesome candidates, only one's getting the job and 999 are being told no. So
Right.
there's a couple, let's take that one step further because a lot of people will be like, okay, I get that. I totally understand. So now, Stephen, tell me why they didn't tell me no. Okay,
Oh.
that HR person is not managing that job. If you go look at the average employer with, say, sub 300 employees, they
Yeah.
have one HR person,
Yeah.
and that's not even their full-time job. So
Yeah.
so if you go to their website and you see they've got 20, then just take and all the numbers Steven just gave you times it by 20. The sheer quantity of juggling all of these things and all of these interviews and all these applicants, there's a reason why they don't interview 100 people. It's also because they have 10 other jobs.
Hmm.
And they have a bunch of employees complaining that their pay's wrong and then upset that their manager is upset because they came late to work and also 400 meetings a month to do. And like even the manager over the sales team, while he may be looking for that new hot salesperson and he's doing the interviews, he also has 10 other salespeople that he has to manage on a daily basis and
Right.
meetings to go to and all this stuff that I think and younger people especially who haven't been in the real world of work where not just like they haven't had a real job, but where they haven't. I would say there's a couple kind of like hurdles of professionalism. When you get an email address at the company instead of your Gmail, you've cleared one of the hurdles because that means you're working like an adult job is what my kids call it. They got an adult job. And when you've managed people that you do one-on-ones for, suddenly it opens up and it's like, oh man, there's a lot of work that happens at work that isn't this one task. But on your side as a job seeker, you're very fixated on me getting a job. And I showed up and did this interview, and it's the most important thing to me. And it's all I got going on. But in
Hmm.
the grand context of the life of those people on the backside that are doing all that stuff, dude, there it is like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what they're doing this week because it's
Yeah.
busy and there's pressure and whatever the case may be. So I'd say that number two, when you've done, I always, whenever I'm talking to business people, I always do the data versus the information. And like when you use data, you get iteration, you get micro improvement, 1% over time, whatever the case may be, right? 1% per week, per day, whatever. But innovation generally comes from doing the unexpected and unrequired. So if you take what Stephen just said, okay, that's the expected and required. If you want to get a job in the current marketplace, and it's not going to get better, let's just put that out there. It's going to get worse. There's going to be more applicants per job open over the next 5 years. I'm sorry, it just is. Whether those are real applicants, unique people, or whether they're applications because you're applying for 1,000 jobs instead of 100, it's flooding the system. The system's being flooded with inbound applicants is going to make you more likely to get stuck underneath, but the game of numbers is what's required. Now, if you want to increase your chances, you need to do the unrequired.
Hmm.
And that will bug people, but it
Or
like
get lucky.
yeah, or get lucky. But even that, if you want to
Yeah.
produce your own work, you need to do the unrequired, unexpected. So if that uncle's bugging you about, wait, back in my day, blah 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 blah, say, hey, who's the last person who got hired at your organization? Number one, or hey, what's the last job you got? When was it? Start with that. If anybody tries to give you any advice about getting a job, start with this very first question: what's the last job you got, and when did you get it? And if that's more than 10 years ago, they're giving you incorrect information.
Right.
Now, if they hired somebody, you say, what's the last person you hired? Then follow up with question two. Where did they come from?
Mm,
And my God says you will hear 50% of the time, oh, they were a referral. They
yes.
knew somebody, whatever the case may be. And so right now, job seekers are running the numbers game. I job boards and AI and apply faster and better resumes and create a resume for each job and all that stuff. That's the required. That's the numbers game. It's also what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, you need to do the unexpected, such as, hey, I know I didn't get chosen for this job. I'm going to follow back up on LinkedIn. I'm going to connect to the HR person. I'm going to send them a thank you note. I'm going to recognize that
Mm-hmm.
their job is hard, that while I may have been perfectly qualified in my mind, I also only saw my resume. I didn't see the resumes of those who applied. And burning the place down is not going to make you more likely to get a job in the future. Also, a couple things that also won't make you more likely: complaining about on LinkedIn. That's
Mm-hmm.
not Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just where your family sees. If all you ever post on Facebook or on LinkedIn is, I'm out of work, I got a new job, sucks, I applied for 1,000 jobs, that manager was wrong, they were terrible, it's not going to help you.
Right.
Like, you're going to get some vanity metrics, some validation from the crowd of people who do not have a job to give you. Just
The yeah, and the what sometimes job seekers don't realize is that what you post on social media, and LinkedIn is both a job board and a social media site,
right.
right? When you're on LinkedIn and you're looking at the job postings, you're basically on the job board part of it. You and I are talking here about the social media part of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a comment, there's a post, you're writing something about the labor market, your experience in job hunting, you were laid off, and this is what your coworkers did, that type of stuff. There's like you said, some of the most viral posts over the last couple years have been I did great work. I, got pregnant, told my boss I was about to go on maternity leave. 2 days before I went on maternity leave, I was fired.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Most of those things are true. Some of them I question whether they in fact are true or
Right.
not. But I think most of those stories are true. Those woe is me types of postings, like you said, they'll get a lot of likes, they'll get a lot of sympathy, they'll get a lot of comments, and they'll get a lot of negative repercussions from future employers because
100%.
future employers use LinkedIn. There's some question about whether it's legal or not, but it happens. They're going to go to LinkedIn and they're going to check you out. And if they see that you're complaining about your former workplace and they have three highly qualified candidates and the other two didn't do it and you did, guess who's not going to get the offer? You just made it easy for them to drop you from that list. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's a complainer. Now, you might have every reason in the world to complain and do it over a drink with your best friend.
Yeah.
Don't do it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, do it
You
over
know,
drink with your best friend. Do it on Glassdoor if you want. Even that though, I, would question not whether it's private or not, but even reading those reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed, just understand that's not a cross section of their employees.
yeah,
That's a cross section of their employees who have quit,
yeah,
not of
mostly.
their employees who work with, right?
Mostly. When
Yeah.
when you when you
Um,
see when you see companies and there are like 38 reviews and 37 of them are just superb and the
oh
CEO is
yeah.
the greatest
Yeah, yeah.
person ever,
100%.
you
Yeah, yeah.
know something fishy is going on there. Um, but
But I
Ryan,
can tell
I'd
you from
be
my side, if you're a college kid right now
yeah,
and you're like, hey, I want to figure out a way to stand out, go produce content on LinkedIn that is worth reading, that
yeah,
shows that you are thinking about the problems in your industry, in the job, in the future, that you're thinking about the customer. Like, go read reviews of the places that you want to work, what their customers are saying, and synthesize that into, 5 things that I believe they could do better. Like, produce content that shows that you're part of the conversation,
yep,
number one, and that you have something worth reading, number two, and number three, that you're part of the solution.
yeah,
And you'll say nobody else is doing that. 100% unrequired, unexpected.
right. Word of caution, and I think you're going to totally agree with me here.
Yeah.
Be careful about confidentiality.
Mm.
So I was really fortunate. When I was a teenager, I worked in a retail shop. I grew up in Canada. There was a retail chain called Shoppers Drug Mart, kind of like CVS,
Right, right.
Walgreens in the US. Um, there was nothing confidential in that shop, right? Like, we had put like toilet paper and tampons and formula and band-aids and chewing gum and tobacco on the shelves and whatever. And it was like nothing about that. But there were things about the operation that absolutely were
Oh,
confidential.
sure.
Like, so how did we price things? What were the markups? Um, when products were discontinued, there was special pricing to kind of get it off the shelves. They had special pricing. Like I think I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but anything ending with a seven at Costco is a discontinued item. It's not
Right,
coming
right.
back.
Uh,
Things like that. We knew. Now, if I had posted that, there wasn't really social media at the time. Well, there wasn't. If I had posted that online, that would have been the kind of thing that a future employer would have been like, we do not want to have anything to do with this person. But I absolutely could have posted, I work at I work at a pharmacy, and this is what we love about our customers. This
yeah.
is right. We just had a 4th of July sale, and it was a great success, and this is why. Those sorts of things. Our customers at this downtown location are different than the suburban location because our customers buy toilet paper in 4 packs rather than 12 packs. You know, that kind of stuff, not a problem. I also worked for Honeywell when I was in grad school, big defense contractor. And there was some serious stuff there that you could absolutely not share. You could go to
Right.
prison if you
Well, and
shared
if you
that.
want the easiest ones
So
to
so
steer it away
don't
from
like if you're
corporate,
an intern,
yeah.
do not share. My boss told me to do this.
Oh, yeah.
We're
No, 100%.
pricing that, right? But you definitely can talk about if you're like a mechanical engineering intern, right? Write about something interesting in mechanical engineering, the advancements in robotics. Talk about if the company that you worked for just put out a press release, we just released this new product. Write about that in a complimentary way and talk about how this is going to benefit, you know, your customers, this industry, this country, make people's lives better. That kind of unexpected, employers love that. It also demonstrates, and you haven't used this phrase, but it demonstrates critical thinking skills. Not only are you just doing the job that you were asked to do, but you're thinking about it. And that
Mhm.
separates you.
Yeah, and I think there's some easy stuff that veers you completely clear of like corporate stuff. So easy one, like thought leadership also is vision of the future. Like, hey, here's the
Hmm.
10 ways that AI might impact engineering in the future. And here is me going deep critically into one of these. That
Yes.
would be a great one. Like, show that you're thinking through the future is number one. Now, you want my number one hack? Go and interview the people doing the job you want. Super easy.
Yes.
If you're in college right now, and literally if you're a career transition, anything like that. Do you see what I'm doing right here with Steven? Steven and I didn't know each other before last week, right? Like
Hmm.
Steven posted something on LinkedIn. I commented on it. Then I hit him up and I'm like, hey, I'd love to interview you on my podcast. And lo and behold, here we are having a conversation. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it into a video to go on LinkedIn. I might turn it into 100 posts on LinkedIn. I bet I could create all kinds of content off of one interview. Super easy. Hey, you're who I want to become. Now, this isn't
Hmm.
with me and Steven, but if I instead rephrase this as a job seeker,
Yes.
I'm going to go and look at the job I want next or the one after that, 2 steps ahead. I'm going to find those people on LinkedIn. I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, I've been playing out my career path, and I really love that you started where I'm at and got here, and I'd love to learn more about it. I'd love to interview you for, and then you can fill in the blank. I'm writing an article on LinkedIn or I'm doing a podcast. Either
Yep.
one. Either of those two, like hit them up, run the interview. Hey, where'd you start? Why'd you pick that? Where did you go from there? Why did you make these steps? What was unexpected? What would you go back and tell yourself? If you were me, and you were my age again, what would you tell yourself? Oh man, you will get tons of value out of that, even if you never publish it. But that gives you great stuff to publish. But secondly, as soon as you get done, say thanks, send them a thank you afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Now go to their career site, sign up for job alerts, see what
Mm.
jobs they have available. And the second a job comes up, I'm never asking somebody to vouch for me. I'm going to hit them back up and say, hey, I see that you guys are hiring for fill in the blank. Is it okay if I put your name down as how I heard about the job? That's it.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not asking for them to go to HR. I'm not asking for them to send in my resume. Literally saying, hey, is it okay if I put you down as how I heard about? Then go and apply and hit it back up and say, hey, Steven, thanks so much for letting me put my name down. Just so you have a heads up, I applied yesterday for that job. Like, fingers crossed, and leave it at that. Don't ask them to do anything else.
Right. Right. You want to make it really easy for people to say yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you said about like a college or university student reaching out because just I think it was maybe Thursday, Friday of last week, so just a few days ago, I got an email from a professor at a university in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Basically says, I have a student who is interested in going into talent acquisition technology, and he's writing up a paper about it. I saw something that you wrote on LinkedIn. He was like, writing to me like, hey, Stephen, I saw something you
Right.
wrote on LinkedIn. Would it be okay if I connected you? It's like, of course. Great,
100%.
right?
Yep.
Next day, student reaches out to me, my professor connected us, I'm writing this paper. Can I interview you for it? Look, let's be honest. Most people like to talk about themselves, some more than others. But most
Mm-hmm.
people, if somebody comes to you and says, you're in a really cool job, tell me how you got there, who's going to say no to that?
Oh,
Right?
100%.
It's fun. It's
Yeah.
cool. It kind of strokes your ego a little bit. You feel good about yourself. You feel good about helping somebody else. So I'm like, of course. So
It
the guy
is the
emails,
single greatest approach. Like
yeah.
literally, there's an entire book on it called Content-Based Networking.
Hmm,
Single greatest, easiest approach, super low-hanging fruit. You don't have to continue the podcast forever. You could do it just as an article. But yeah, like you said, number one, people love talking about themselves. Your approach is extremely validating. Hey, I want to be you in the
yeah,
future, and
yeah.
I'd love to hear about how you got there and what advice you have. And third, everybody wishes somebody had given them that advice when they were in your spot. And
Yes.
nobody wants to be the person that's like, because there are a few of them out there who are like, no, I had to grind it out. You got to grind it out. But most people don't have that negative view. They look back on down the rung of the ladder and
Hmm.
say, I wish somebody had been there to help me. Don't ask them to be your mentor. Don't ask for a big ask. This is a very easy ask. 30 minutes on Zoom. I'd love to chat with you about this job and like what you love and blah, blah, blah. Throw their LinkedIn profile into ChatGPT. Have it write the outreach. Have it prep you for the interview. Have it get you all ready to go. Show your freaking work on that. Like it's a great entry level use of AI for all kinds of stuff to show how you used it to prep, how you used it for post production, how you used to write content off of it. But especially then you connect the college part. Like if this was someone from SUU that was like, hey, Ryan, I see you went to SUU. I'm going to SUU as well right now. I see you studied accounting, but then you got into the HR tech world. I'm studying accounting. I'd love to hear why you made those. In 2 seconds, I'd hop on Zoom with them.
Totally. Yeah, and just to make sure that we connect the dots here, earlier in our discussion, we were talking about referrals. And are people only going to be able to work and get interviewed and get hired by people they know, right? Family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
This is an antidote to that. This is
100%.
a great solution for the candidate who says, but I don't know anybody who's in a position to hire me. That is absolutely the case for a ton of people, especially, people who are first generation to have graduated from high school, who immigrated to the country, who went to college or university, who graduated, etc. They very well may not know anybody who's in a position
Right.
to hire them. And it does put them at a disadvantage. Let's be candid about that. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not insurmountable. Like
Yeah.
it does take extra effort, it does take extra time, but reach out and interview. The other thing is that when you do reach out, make it clear you're not asking that person for a job because you otherwise you're going to get some of those people who will come back to you and it's like, oh, you're in your third year in a mechanical engineering program. I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated 10 years ago. No, I don't want to meet with you because we're not hiring, right? But if you make it clear right from the get-go, I saw you on LinkedIn. I saw you in this press release. I was driving by your office, your photos in the window, whatever it is that led you to that person. And it seems to me that you're doing the kind of work that I want to do. I want to learn more about how you got there. Make it really clear.
Right.
Not, I'm going to apply to your company. I'm going to ask you for a referral. I'm going to ask that you recommend me. You're like, no, no, no. Just, I
Yeah.
want to understand how you got to where you got. Um, your background coming out of accounting, getting into HR tech, somewhat similar to mine. I like to say that I got out of law to enjoy my life.
Mhm.
Um, and it's another bit of a lesson, I think, that if you are in a path, whether it's school, whether it's work, whatever, that's not going to bring you happiness, that's not going to be able to pay your bills, whatever, cut your losses, move on. I look at my education and early career in law as being great. Like I wasn't cutting my losses. It was a great foundation to what I do. But I probably once or twice a month, I'll run across a young adult who's like thinking of going to law school, is in law school, recently graduated. And they're like, when I'm 40, 50, 60, I don't want to be a lawyer. How did you get out of law? I'll get that question all the time. And I am always going to be happy to help people, to answer that for themselves.
So I think you bring up a good point on that. All one last thing on the connection. So
Sure. It's your
uh,
podcast.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think I think
No,
it's
but
your
I
rules.
don't want to miss that because I think there's something interesting there that we could pull. We could do an entire podcast on. But one thing of so if you everybody's seen the movie Hamilton,
Oh yeah.
you've got like Hamilton versus Burr, right? And
Yeah.
one of I actually think I have it behind me. Like there's a sign up on the wall there that says the room where it happens, and
Sweet.
there was this constant thing of like, how does he get in those rooms?
Yeah.
I want to be in that room. Like his entire Burr's entire thing was like that dude is really audacious, and for whatever reason, he's in the situations that I wish I was in. And when he's there, he capitalizes on it. And as a young adult, we tend to hang out with young adults. So like
Mm,
Saturday morning, okay, and this would be a challenge I'll throw out there. Saturday morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to think about what would I do Saturday morning as a 20 something or a 30 something, and maybe I'm going to go mountain biking and you're going to go running and whatever the case may be. But I can tell you anywhere in America, probably the world, but definitely America, there is a pickleball court somewhere where 50 somethings are playing pickleball who are your future bosses. And if you will show up with a paddle and go play pickleball, you will get more connections out of an hour session playing pickleball than you would an entire week hanging out at Starbucks.
do, and
Or
but do you but are you asking these young adults to allow you to win, Ryan, so that you
nope,
feel better about
no,
yourself?
it doesn't matter at all. The key with pickleball though is it's a like a rotation sport. It's not like
Hmm.
golf. Like you can't just go to a golf course. If I went to a golf course Saturday morning, there will be rich, influential people there playing golf. But I can't just walk up and be like, "Hey, can I play with you today?"
Right.
Like that would be outrageous. At a pickleball court, I can literally walk up and jam my club in the rotation and end up playing with 20 different people in an hour's period of time. I've met people, influential people in Cabo, in Puerto Rico, in Costa Rica, in San Diego, and just playing pickleball. Get a
It's a
funny
little it's
shirt.
so you're saying it's kind of like speed dating.
100%. It is speed dating, like very inclusive. And again, people older than you are more likely to be your manager and boss, not people your age.
Yes. Yes.
So your default network in college and at work are people your age. And while that's cool, those are the people at your same level. You need to get network of people above you. And that
Mm-hmm.
means hanging out with people older than you, older, more accomplished, like been around the block, whatever. And so if you want the easy one that literally like proved me wrong, go find a pickleball court, guarantee, or we use the places to play app. It'll tell you when to show up and where. Go hang out there. There is zero chance you don't run into somebody who is important, who is inclusive, who, I mean, I played with all kinds of people. Doesn't matter to me. But like at that point, then it's pretty easy to be like, hey, can I connect with you on LinkedIn and start to build out your network? There's no excuse. It costs you like $50 for a paddle. You could probably go up there and somebody would borrow you a paddle to play. Like it's not that. But going back to the getting out of law, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, the big transition for most people will be that we were sold this dream of like a career is a path, and I start in college and I end when I retire, and it's one path. And it,
Linear.
yeah, very much
Yeah.
like it's the
So
same
wrong.
job.
So
And
wrong.
oh, yeah. And if you fall off, you're the outlier,
Right.
right? Like something you chose the wrong degree clearly because you fell away and yada yada yada. But I think you're better off thinking in like chapters.
Yes.
And maybe if your life is a book, maybe it's kind of broken into these sections, and there's a set of chapters, and then you go to a separate one and a separate one, and teeing that up in your mind off right off the bat will take some rewiring because the average person will feel like a failure. Like I know I did. I was like, hey, like my mom was a school teacher, my dad was a car salesman. I had to get a degree. I got my accounting degree because it was easy. I wasn't telling anybody there I wasn't going to be an accountant, but I knew it when I jumped in the master's program. I switched from accounting to an MBA because I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this forever. But
Hmm.
that was because I was lucky enough to have had jobs in accounting. Most of the people in school with me hadn't. And so looking back, I'm like, well, I knew I wouldn't want to do this forever, but I didn't care. And clearly, I'm an outlier that didn't care. Like telling me I did it wrong was like a motivator to me. But for most people, they have to break this stigma that like deciding that you're working in something that you didn't study is failure because AI is coming and it is going to disrupt. It's going to disrupt the economy and the way work works and the way jobs work and that. And so the very first step of that will be to get over this like connection to who I was going to become and recognizing that I can become anything. Like I can become something different. Yeah, I may have to go back to school to be a doctor. I may have to pass some standards to be a lawyer. Heaven forbid, please learn how
Hmm.
to fly a plane. But the majority of American jobs can be learned
Oh,
by
absolutely.
somebody who didn't learn them in college. You can evolve and progress. And in fact, you might find that like life gets kind of boring doing the same thing forever.
Yeah, we years ago, we published a series of articles on basically it was like the career path, career mapping.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fascinating to me how infrequently the major aligned with the most popular jobs that people took. So I think we all kind of understand if you take, if you just have like an undergraduate degree in Russian literature, there's a really unlikely chance that you're going to make your living in Russian literature,
Right.
right? What are the two most common occupations for people who are Russian literature majors? Retail and hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
What are the two most common majors for almost any major? Retail and hospitality. Now, where that changes, I think you kind of touched on it, Ryan, is when you need some kind of licensure.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through an engineering program, law, accounting, medicine, something like that, then suddenly retail and hospitality are not the two most, but they're still up there. It's
Yeah.
amazing how many lawyers, accountants, doctors, etc., are not lawyers, doctors, accountants by profession.
Oh,
Uh, and so what my wife and I told our kids, they're 30, 28, and 26, is don't worry about what you want to be when you're 40. For sure not 50, for sure not 60. Think about the next 5 years.
mm-hmm.
Do something that you're good at, that you enjoy, that can pay your bills, that you value for the next 5 years. And you will accidentally discover your path and be
Right.
good with that. Don't try to map out your life. Anybody in their 50s, 60s, who says to you, "Oh, I knew what I wanted to be when I was 13 and I ended up here." Kind of like when we were talking a couple
Mhm.
minutes ago about like a linear
Right.
career path. Okay. There are probably those people out there. There are also probably purple unicorns. Um, those people overwhelmingly are either fooling themselves or they're lying to you or both. The reality is that almost everybody discovers who they are, what they want to do, how they're going to pay their bills accidentally. And that's fine. Like life is, you drive through an intersection today, you get through safely. Great. Car hits you. Not so great.
Right.
Did you have control over it? Does it impact your life? Of course it does. And the same thing happens in the world of work. Your boss one day wakes up and she's in a really bad mood and she comes in and she says, "Ryan, I don't like the color of your eyes. You're fired." That is going to change your life trajectory, and it wasn't your fault. On the other hand, she's like, "Ryan, I think, you're awesome. Your ears are just great. Something stupid
Right.
and random, and I'm going to give you a promotion." That is also going to change your life trajectory. And you have no idea, even at the time, how. And maybe it's something you did, maybe it's something you didn't do, but embrace it. Don't don't fret
I think
about it.
that
Don't
one
try
right
to
there.
plan out the next 20
Right.
years.
And I bet if you went back, if we just took it one step further, I bet if you went back to the people who said, I knew what I was going to be when I was 13 and I am it now, if you
Yeah.
had one more question, was one of your parents this?
Oh, yes. Great point.
Because one of the really interesting things we as humans, and it will lead us back to the podcasting and pickleball, is like we struggle envisioning ourselves doing something we haven't seen somebody that we look up to do.
Yep.
And so it's why coming out, I went to high school in a small town and grew up on a farm. I knew there was one person that I looked up to that I was like, my uncle was a lawyer. He made lots of money. Okay, I could be a lawyer. But literally every other adult in my life, I was like, I don't want to be a farmer. I don't want to sell cars. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to do any of these things. And so when I went into college, I luckily had taken an accounting class in high school and was like, I want to be a lawyer, make lots of money, and accounting is easy. Cool.
Hmm.
Went to college. And I got into college and I'm like, I haven't met any other adults here that do something that I could see myself enjoying doing. So, the easiest path out of this place is for me to get an accounting degree. And so I got an accounting degree and then I got into the accounting master's program, but I got a job at a tech company as an accountant. And I suddenly went, oh shit, here are all of these adults that do programming and marketing and sales and all of these roles that I literally had never seen done before. It wasn't that the career guidance counselor hadn't told me they were available, it's that I was seeing somebody do it that I also could eat lunch with, that I could engage with, that I could see myself in. And suddenly I was like, okay, cool. I either want to do marketing or product management, some type of sales, but not that kind of sales. Okay, cool. The entrepreneur's here. I can see how he works and I can see kind of the visionary and the integrator and the way they're working here. And I could be like, okay, I know what I want to do. I want to head into the tech world. It still wasn't, I know exactly what I want to do. It was like, I know where I want to be. I'm going to start learning and developing those skills. And I'm going to start building some connections in that space so that I can head in that direction. But my parents thought I was nuts taking that job. My mom, the school teacher, the most important person in my life, was like, don't take that job. Stay where you're at right now. It's a multi-level marketing company. I made that jump for 25 cents an hour. But it blew up my world.
Mm-hmm.
That was not choice, it was luck. If I'd
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make that luck, I would have started interviewing people and
Mm-hmm.
interviewing people and interviewing people until I'd found somebody that was like, I like that guy's life. And I also like the way he makes work sound. Not
Mm.
just, oh, I love he's rich, because I would have hated being a lawyer. But
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that they make work sound. But I think one of the big problems we're going to have is this like learning to connect with people outside of our sphere and learning how to learn new stuff, not at college.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it's a different thing when you're like, not just learning it to learn it, learning how to do it. Meaning, like, okay, I went and studied a bunch of websites. I watched 3 courses. I downloaded Dreamweaver. I built a website. I went and studied SEO. I went and built a website to do some SEO. Like it was very much this like see, learn a little, do an experiment and adjust. That's not like normal college or high school. But in the future, that's what it looks like is like, oh, I like that thing. Have AI teach it to me, build an experiment, build a project on my own, see how it works. Where most kids right now are being taught, learn it, then somebody will give you the opportunity to do it. And that gap is going to get really wide.
Yeah.
A business is willing to pay you to do something for the first time.
And that which brings up another point is another really, really legitimate complaint that I hear is if I don't have experience and every employer requires experience, how can I ever get experience? It's a catch
Mm-hmm.
22.
Yep.
And there's a lot of truth in it, but it's not the complete truth because one way of getting that experience is to volunteer for a nonprofit or walk down the street to a local small business. So
Yeah.
you want to build a website, you want to learn accounting, you want to learn how to run a cash register, you want to learn how to take care of dogs, whatever it might be. Find a little nonprofit, find a little small business, and go in and volunteer 2 hours of your time a week. It doesn't have to be a full-time gig. You can go in on a Saturday morning and do the books for the local cupcake shop.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're just volunteering your time, that can feel kind of icky when you're talking about volunteering your time for a Fortune 500. Like, no Fortune 500 should ever be asking anybody to intern for free.
Right.
But your little local cupcake shop, right, which is run, the owner is behind the counter and maybe they have an employee or two. I guarantee that the last thing that that owner wants to be doing is putting in bills into QuickBooks. But if you're thinking
100%.
about becoming an accountant, what a great experience.
Yeah. And if you add this intermediary step there of like accounting, super crazy easy. And you could say it's pointless because AI is going to replace it, whatever. Cool. But it's still a function and it's still understanding. Go take a QuickBooks class, step one. And
Hmm.
then we look for that small business nonprofit to let you do it. But if you want the intermediary step, go sign up for a free trial of QuickBooks, set up a chart account, have AI build you a bunch of bogus data, and do the job so you have something to show.
Yes.
Like build it without then going and say, hey, I was just building out this XYZ for a nonprofit. I'd like to show you what I built. Do you need some help with this kind of stuff? 100% do it for free. It'd be great if you paid me. I don't care. But what I want is recognizable experience doing it for somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the staircase you're climbing. Make the steps smaller of like, I learned it, I did it for myself, I did it for somebody else, I did it and got paid. Okay, now I can kind of like branch up into that. But I mean, literally, like my 15-year-old stepson came home this summer, watched 3 videos, built an AI agent,
Mm,
and has showed it off to people. Do you know how impressive it is when you show something you built instead of saying I can build it?
for sure.
It's super impressive. The CTO, I think he's now the CTO of ISOL, but the CTO of Applicant Pro, I hired. He was in the registrar's office. He had a business management degree. He'd read a book on PHP. He had built a code base for a problem at work that he was just messing around with. He's like, oh, we have all these spreadsheets, so I built this data model and I built all this stuff. That's how he got the job. Nobody paid him to build it, but it showed like again unrequired, unexpected proof of work, proof that he could do and implement what he did. But you're 100% right. There's a ton of people going, I'm in this catch 22, and it's kind of like a gap that we need to get across, and we're waiting for them to build the bridge to us. There are ways to build the bridge across it. You may say I shouldn't have to. Like all this, it's not fair, doesn't put money in the bank.
Right. Yeah, one of my favorite expressions is, in just sort of talking about sort of the overwhelming aspect of this to a lot of people, is um, how do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
One bite at a time. right? Do not try to look at everything that you need to do to find that job, to find that career path, to get to the point where you're going to retire happily. That's the elephant.
Right.
It's overwhelming. You can't swallow it. Take a bite, then
Yeah.
another
And
bite,
the
then
saddest thing
another
is
bite.
like you and I'm sure that I won't speak for
By
you.
the way, I have no idea what elephants taste like, and I don't
Yeah.
think I want to know. But that's
Probably
another.
chicken, really tough chicken. I don't know though, because they eat peanuts, but I'm not sure that that's real. But if something consumed peanuts all day long, I bet it tastes like
Oh,
chicken.
yeah, absolutely. That it
100%.
would, yeah. So you're
Yeah.
saying it tastes like Reese's peanut butter cups?
100%. Not the
Okay.
chocolate part. But I do think that like if you wake up today, and we'll end on this, but if you wake up today and you go, look, there is a lot of hype and hate out there in the marketplace, and I
Yeah.
can guarantee you one thing, like 5 years from now will look very different than today. And there is going to be a lot of chaos and
Yeah.
disruption and a lot of negative news and a ton of negative noise on LinkedIn. Going back to your boss might show up one day and fire you, the most detrimental experience you will ever go through is being laid off. Like
Mm,
it causes some psychological impact of like, it's the reverse of winning the lottery. I did nothing wrong. I've showed up every day. I've done a great job. I got great performance reviews, and I don't have a job anymore. Like getting
hmm
fired when you see it coming is like, yeah, but I kind of messed up. But getting laid off, and those are going to happen, period, full stop. They happen no matter what, but they happen at a higher level in every chaotic environment.
Yeah.
But getting to the point of going, and so I did these small things, took these small steps. I mean, in the amount of time that somebody spends on Facebook, some kid learned how to build an AI agent. In the amount of time somebody spent watching TV, somebody else learned how to build a website. It's just what you're focused on doing, especially to improve yourself, to build up your own knowledge and experience. And you might hate pickleball, great. But if it's networking, and it gets you in the room where it happens, and you merge that with like, oh, I built some new AI agent right now, like massive opportunity usually comes out, or the people who come out ahead on that are the ones who got active. They just are not that got
hmm
paid, not that, but got active. They actively got around people, they actively got around the situation, they actively started using and building. Those are the people who came out ahead during the internet explosion, during mobile, during every recession. The people come out the other. Indeed came out of a recession. Almost all
hmm
new ideas, new startups, new like transformative ideas come out the other side of a major chaotic event. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that sounds hard, or oh, that sounds like I shouldn't have to do it. I was told if I got this degree, I'd be good. Like it just is what it is.
hmm
This is just going to be the way life goes. But I can tell you that complaining about won't fix it. And like getting around other people complain about won't fix it. But getting around people and that are doing will 100% open up new opportunities. It won't be 100% perfect. It won't guarantee you a job on your first time playing pickleball or your first time in a co-working space. But there's no way you walk away from those two experiences or that interview thing and not go, aha, like there's value here. Like if I do this enough times, it will pay off.
Yeah, I feel like you and I have given the listeners a buffet of choices.
Yeah, pick one.
And
Pick
the
something.
point exactly, you're a step ahead of me, and this isn't. I don't think that you or I would ever say to anybody, if you and I came up with 20 ideas here, like absolutely not. Don't try to do all 20. Pick one. Do
Mm-hmm.
one of these things this week. See how
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah.
Didn't
And
work
that's
out?
actually, it's,
Do another thing the next week. You go to a buffet, and unless you're a total pig, you don't eat everything on the buffet. You pick a few things, you try maybe a few new things, and you see how it goes. And if you like that, you know, chicken skewer, maybe you go back for another one. And if you
yeah.
didn't like it so much, maybe you'll have, the fried shrimp, whatever it is.
Yeah. There's so many
The
quotes to go with
elephant.
that. There's so many quotes to go with that it's out of control. But like in the tech world, or at least in the startup world, it's an acronym, it's focus. I think it's like follow one path until success. Pick one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
We put so much emphasis on choosing the right thing.
Yeah.
It is much better to choose something and get active and
Yeah.
stick to it long enough to get good at it. Because trust me, if you're not a networker and you show up to play pickleball, the first day you're not going to be like, crushed it. Like, I don't need to do that anymore. And if you decide, hey, I'm going to reach out and do some outreach to podcasts, you're not going to get the first one and get a job. Like,
Right.
get active, focus on it until success. Whatever path, pick any path that has to do with increasing the number of people you know who are in the world you want to be in, doing the job you want to get, and anything you do that increases your abilities to do those jobs and to prove you can do it. Not
Hmm.
just the learning, but that, like, you have proof. Those two things, you'll never go wrong. And if you do, when you reach that point, you will have learned how to learn those things. Your second round will become much easier and faster. So, Steven, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Like, if you're listening to this all the way through, we'll probably chunk it up. But this is just a wealth of knowledge. If you are listening to it all the way through and you get to this point, you're like, where should I start? I'll give you my one tip as we leave. Go grab the transcript, jam it into ChatGPT, give it your resume, and say, hey, here's my resume or my LinkedIn profile, and here's this podcast I just listened to. Point me in the right direction what I should do, and you will be blown away by what it spits out for you to do. So,
That is,
Steven, thanks a ton, man.
I'm going to rip that idea off. Cheers,
100%.
man.
All right, thanks.
Okay, that conversation with Steve just completely rewired how I think about job searching, and I'm still processing these massive insights. First, that 10x referral statistic isn't just a nice to have, it's the difference between getting an interview and getting ignored. Steve's right. When you flood the system with AI-generated applications, humans always revert to trusted sources. Second, Steve's buffet approach is brilliant. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick one strategy, whether it's the pickleball networking, content-based interviewing, or the job board to ATS hack, and focus on it until it works. And third, this idea of career chapters instead of linear paths, that's the future. Steve got out of law to enjoy his life, and with AI disrupting everything, we all need to get comfortable with reinventing ourselves. Here's my challenge. Stop waiting for someone to build the bridge across your career gap. Go grab a paddle and hit the pickleball courts this Saturday. Interview someone doing the job you want. Use AI to prep for those conversations, then use it to create content from them. Huge thanks to Steve Rothberg for sharing his wisdom. Check out College Recruiter and connect with him on LinkedIn. If this conversation sparked something for you, hit subscribe and share this with someone who's stuck in job search purgatory. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is realize the game has changed and start playing by the new rules. I'm Ryan Kohler, and I'll catch you next time on the future of work with AI.